Effective immediately. Boardroom downstairs. 6 words, that's all my sister Claire said before she dropped the notice on my desk and walked out. No handshake, no explanation, just a sheet of letterhead that would unravel our family's empire in less than a week. I stared at the words until they stopped making sense. Termination of executive role, immediate release from duties. The kind of cold phrasing that looks professional on paper, but sounds like betrayal in your ears. My name is Evelyn Reyes, former co-owner of Reyes and Coed Hospitality, the hotel chain my father built from one roadside inn 40 years ago. For 23 years, I'd been the one keeping the lights on, smoothing over inspectors, and saving our reputation every time someone in the family made another creative business decision. And just like that, they'd voted me out. Claire didn't even look at me when she handed the papers over. She was wearing that same sharp navy suit she used to wear at board meetings, back when I still thought she respected me. "You're out, Evie," she said flatly. "Dad's legacy can't survive your sentimentality anymore." Sentimentality. That's what she called refusing to sell off our heritage hotels to investors who saw them as tax write-offs. What Claire didn't know was that she'd just signed her own downfall. The document sitting in her perfectly manicured hand was more than a termination notice, it was the trigger. The one thing our father built into the company's founding contract before he passed. See, 20 years ago, when Dad turned the company over to us, he wrote a clause that nobody except me and his attorney ever truly understood. He called it the keyholder clause. It stated that the founder's successor, the one who retained full stewardship of the original hotel, the one bearing our family name, would automatically hold the intellectual and licensing rights to every Reyes and Condo property. Not symbolically, legally. That property was the Ocean View, our very first hotel, the one I still managed personally. The one they all forgot about. I signed the notice without looking up. "You sure about this, Claire?" Her expression didn't flicker. "Completely." I stood, handed her my pen, and said quietly, "Good, because you just cut off your only lifeline." The board meeting lasted less than 15 minutes. I wasn't invited to speak. I didn't need to. By the time they called security to escort me out of my own lobby, I was already miles ahead of them. In 4 days, they were set to finalize the merger, their shiny new plan to expand the Reyes legacy by joining with the Kingsley Group, a luxury conglomerate known for gutting family brands and replacing staff with spreadsheets. The deal was worth nearly 400 million years of projected value. But without the Ocean View license, without my signature as the legal key holder, that merger was a ghost. I walked past this front desk I designed myself. The chandelier overhead, a custom piece Dad imported from Seville, caught the morning light. Everything smelled faintly of lemon polish and memory. Security didn't say a word as I handed them my badge. They probably thought I'd broken down by now. I didn't. I smiled, because they'd all forgotten one thing. I never broke what my father built. I preserved it. When I got home, the first thing I did was pour a glass of red wine and open Dad's old briefcase. Inside, between stacks of faded hotel licenses and handwritten notes about occupancy trends, was a folder labeled Clause 9B, Key holder transfer. I laid it flat on my kitchen counter and reread it. In the event of executive removal or termination of the active key holder, the legal title and all associated licensing rights of the Reyes brand revert exclusively to the last verified operator of the founding property, Ocean View, effective immediately and retroactively. Retroactively. Meaning the moment they fired me, they fired their own ownership of the entire brand. Dad always had a dark sense of humor. I called our family lawyer, Mr. Green, who'd been with us since the 80s. He picked up on the second ring. "Evie, I heard. I'm guessing Claire didn't console you before this?" He sighed. "No. And I told her years ago not to mess with Clause 9B. You know what this means, right?" "Oh, I know," I said. "I just want it in writing." By nightfall, I had it. A formal letter confirming that Reyes and Coeur Hospitality had breached its founding contract by removing the active key holder without due transfer approval. In other words, everything, licenses, trademarks, the brand name, was now legally tied to me. They wanted me out before the merger? Fine. They just made the merger illegal. That night, I sat by the fireplace in my quiet home overlooking the coast. My mother's photograph was still on the mantel next to the little wooden model of the Ocean View my father carved when I was 6. I thought about what Claire said. Sentimentality. As if caring about our name made me weak. As if loyalty was a flaw. They'd built their expansion plan on buzzwords and borrowed money, forgetting what made our hotel special in the first place. People like Rosa, our housekeeper of 30 years, or Miguel, the night manager who still ironed his shirts every morning out of pride. 4 days, I thought. That's how long it would take for them to discover they couldn't sign the merger paper without me. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, unknown numbers. I ignored them all. Then one text came through from a number I recognized. Uncle Daniel, our father's younger brother and the only board member who still had a conscience. They're panicking. Kingsley's lawyers are asking for the brand certificate. Claire doesn't have it. What's going on? I smiled. Clause 9B, Uncle. That's what's going on. By noon, Claire called. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Evie, listen. Good afternoon to you too. I don't know what you think you're doing, but Kingsley is threatening to walk if we can't produce brand clearance by Friday. Then you'd better hurry, I said calmly. Friday's coming fast. You can't just, can I? She went silent. I could hear paper shuffling, the sound of her perfectly controlled breathing cracking just slightly. Dad's clause, she said finally, almost whispering. You wouldn't. I didn't write it, Claire. He did. Maybe he knew one of us would forget what family meant. I ended the call before she could respond. By the second day, news had started leaking. Reyes family merger in jeopardy over legal clause. One headline read, sources say internal family dispute threatens $400 million deal. I didn't leak it. I didn't have to. The lawyers at Kingsley were already calling our legal firm every hour, demanding answers. The ocean view stayed open, quiet and calm. I walked the lobby at sunset, ran my hand along the polished reception desk, and smiled at the familiar hum of the air conditioner Dad installed himself. Every tile, every brass key, every scent of old wood and salt air. It was all mine now. On the third day, Claire showed up at my door. No chauffeur, no entourage, just her, hair undone, face pale. She stood on my porch like a ghost. Evie, please, she said. We can fix this. Just sign the clearance papers. Let's move forward together. I leaned against the door frame, studying her. Together? You fired me, remember? It was the board's decision. You were holding us back. No, Claire, I said quietly. I was holding us together. Her eyes glistened, but her voice stayed sharp. Dad wouldn't want this. Dad didn't want greed to run this family. He built protection against it. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. There was nothing left to say. By Thursday morning, Kingsley Group terminated negotiations. The press release was brutal. Due to unresolved ownership disputes within Reyes & Co. Hospitality, Kingsley Group will suspend all merger activity indefinitely. Stockholders panicked. Board members resigned. The family's empire, my family's empire, collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. I sat at the Ocean View's rooftop terrace with a cup of coffee, watching the waves roll in. Down below, the old neon sign flickered softly. Reyes Hotel since 1979. 4 days. That's all it took. The news broke just after noon. Reyes & Co. merger officially collapses after keyholder clause dispute. Every outlet had the story. Some called it poetic. Others called it catastrophic. I just called it Tuesday. I didn't take any victory laps. Didn't call anyone I didn't need to. The silence was enough. Silence meant they finally understood what they'd done. At 2:47 p.m., Claire called again. I let it ring until the screen went dark. Then she texted. They're saying the brand license reverted to you. Please tell me you can fix this. I typed 3 words and hit send. Dad already did. That evening, I sat in the Ocean View lobby, the same place where I used to do homework while Dad checked in guests after midnight. The same place where he taught me how to polish brass and told me people don't stay for chandeliers. They stay because you remember their names. Now his photo hung behind the counter again, where it belonged. The night manager brought me the evening paper, front page. Kingsley stock falls 18% after Reyes merger failure. Below that, internal power struggle leads to Reyes family downfall. Claire's picture was there too, smiling from an old press photo. The article said the board had voted her out that morning. 4 days. That's how long it took for the empire she tried to control to slip through her fingers. I didn't celebrate. There was no champagne, no toast, just quiet satisfaction. The kind that settles deep in your bones when justice doesn't need to announce itself. Uncle Daniel stopped by after closing. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. You really did it, he said. No, Uncle, I said. They did it to themselves. He nodded slowly. Your father would be proud. Maybe, I said, but he'd also be disappointed it had to come to this. We stood there a while, listening to the distant crash of the waves and the hum of the lobby lights. You'll rebuild, he asked. I smiled faintly. Already have. The following morning, my attorney called. Evie, you might want to check your inbox. There it was, a formal request from Kingsley Group. We would like to discuss a direct partnership with the Ocean View Hotel and its owner, Evelyn Reyes. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. Let them wait. For 23 years, I'd been the invisible glue holding this family together. They thought I was replaceable, disposable. But the truth about foundations is simple. When you remove the one that actually holds the structure up, the whole building falls. That night, I poured myself another glass of wine and walked the empty halls of the Ocean View. Every sound echoed. The air smelled like fresh linens and sea salt. It felt alive again. In room 214, I stopped. That was the room where Dad spent his last summer. He'd insisted on dying where he started, looking out at the same shoreline where he'd built his dream from nothing. I remembered what he said that last night. If they ever forget why we built this, make them remember, not with shouting, just by standing your ground. And that's exactly what I did. By the end of the week, 3 major outlets had picked up the story. Family betrayal destroys multi-million-dollar hotel merger. Founder's daughter quietly takes back. Legacy. The comments were brutal. People called it karma. A few even called me ruthless. I didn't correct them. Sometimes justice looks like revenge, wearing a calm face. 2 weeks later, Claire sent one last message. I lost everything, Evie. I don't know what to do. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, rebuild something honest. And that was it. A month passed. The Ocean View was thriving again. Guests were checking in daily, word spreading about the original Reyes Hotel. I rehired Rosa and Miguel, gave them raises, and told them the company name would never change hands again. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean, I unlocked my father's old office for the first time in years. Dust floated in the golden light. On his desk sat a brass key, the first master key to the hotel. Tarnished, but solid. I hung it on the wall beside his framed quote. Some inherit wealth, others inherit responsibility. Only a few honor both. By midnight, I sat on the balcony, watching the moon ripple across the water. Somewhere across town, Claire was probably drafting apologies, statements, explanations for shareholders who no longer existed. I didn't feel pity, only peace. Because in the end, she hadn't just fired me, she freed me. 4 days. That's all it took to remind them the legacy isn't a name on a document. It's the people who refuse to let it rot. They pushed me out of the family business, and 4 days later, the merger collapsed. Not because I fought back, but because I never had to. Dad already made sure of that.